You keep waiting for that spark, that surge of motivation that will finally push you into action. You scroll through videos, podcasts, quotes, hoping something will hit differently this time. But it never lasts. You feel inspired for a moment, and then the silence returns. The same questions echo. Why can't I stay consistent? Why do I keep starting over? Why do I feel so far from myself? Let's be honest. You don't lack motivation. You lack direction. Because motivation without direction is noise. It's emotion with nowhere to go. It fades, not because you're weak, but because it was never rooted in something solid. Covey said, "You have to decide what your highest priorities are and have the courage, pleasantly, smilingly, non-apologetically, to say no to other things." But how can you say no if you don't even know what your yes is? That's where your real fatigue comes from. Not from working too hard, but from moving without aim. From trying to feel your way forward without a clear destination. From mistaking inspiration for direction. And that ends now. This isn't another video to get you hyped for an hour and then forgotten. This is where you stop chasing feeling and start building clarity. Because when you know where you're going, you don't need constant motivation. You don't need to be in the mood. You act because it's aligned, because it's you. In this video, we're going to rebuild the one thing that gives your actions power, direction. We'll uncover what you've been missing, why motivation keeps failing, and how to create movement that doesn't depend on how you feel in the moment. By the end, you won't just feel ready. You'll be rooted, clear, anchored, and most importantly, leading again. You keep wondering why everything feels heavy, why every small task drains you, why nothing excites you anymore, even the things that used to. So you tell yourself you must be unmotivated. You try to push harder. You wait for energy to return. And when it doesn't, you blame yourself for the lack of drive. But what if the problem isn't motivation? What if the real issue is that your actions no longer match your values? Misalignment is silent. It doesn't scream like a crisis. It whispers through your routines, through the way you wake up already tired, through the moments you say yes when you want to say no, through the days you perform tasks that don't reflect who you are or who you're trying to become. Covey warned us about this. He said that most people spend their lives climbing the ladder of success, only to realize it was leaning against the wrong wall. And that's what misalignment feels like. You're climbing, you're working, you're showing up, but it leads nowhere meaningful. You feel disconnected from your direction because your actions have no anchor. It's not laziness. It's not failure. It's the weight of living outside your principles. And your body feels it before your mind can name it. That's why you procrastinate. That's why you second-guess every decision. That's why the idea of starting something new feels overwhelming. Not because you lack ambition, but because you lack a clear why. When your actions don't reflect your values, every task feels like resistance. Every goal becomes a chore. Every step forward feels forced. And the longer you live like this, the more you begin to confuse fatigue with weakness. You start believing the lie that something's wrong with you, when in truth, something's just out of alignment. So how do you fix it? Not by adding more pressure, not by pushing harder or consuming more motivational content, but by stopping long enough to ask, what matters to me now? What do I truly value? And am I living in a way that reflects that? Because values aren't just concepts. They're coordinates. They guide your decisions. They give your effort meaning. They help you say yes with conviction and no without guilt. Covey believed that effectiveness isn't about how much you get done. It's about whether what you're doing actually matters. He taught that living by principles isn't just noble, it's practical. Because when your values lead, your energy follows. Your clarity strengthens. Your focus sharpens. And the noise begins to fade. Look around your life right now. Your schedule, your habits, your responsibilities. How much of it reflects who you want to be? How much of it is rooted in your deepest priorities? And how much of it is just noise you've learned to tolerate? This isn't about burning everything down. It's about realigning. One choice at a time. One small shift that says, I remember what I stand for. Because when you start showing up for what matters, even in small ways, you stop needing motivation. You stop searching for external fuel. You start feeling drawn again, not pushed. There's a difference between effort that depletes and effort that fulfills. You felt both. One leaves you tired and empty. The other leaves you tired, but proud, grounded, clear. And the difference between the two is alignment. So if you're tired of dragging yourself forward, if you're exhausted from pretending to care about things that don't light you up, if you keep bouncing between ideas, hoping one finally sticks, pause, breathe, and ask yourself this: where am I saying yes to things that are pulling me further from who I want to be? Because the moment you begin saying yes to alignment, everything changes. You don't need to overhaul your life in one day. You just need to begin replacing force with purpose, to stop doing what you think you should, and start choosing what feels true, even if it's quiet, even if it's small. That's how alignment works. It doesn't shout. It doesn't rush. It grounds. It clarifies. It strengthens from the inside out. And when you live from that place, you become unshakable, not because life gets easier, but because you stop betraying yourself to get through it. This is the shift, not into action for the sake of movement, but into direction rooted in who you are. You keep waiting for the day when motivation finally shows up and makes everything easier. The day you'll feel excited to wake up, ready to work, clear on your goals, and full of energy to chase them. But that day doesn't come. Or if it does, it doesn't stay. You feel the surge for an hour, maybe a day. Then it fades. And you're left exactly where you were before, searching again for another spark, another push, another reason to keep going. And here's the truth no one tells you. Motivation is unreliable. It's built on emotion. It rises and falls with your mood, your energy, your environment. It can be powerful, yes, but it isn't stable. And when your life depends on something unstable, everything around you starts to feel fragile too. Stephen Covey understood this deeply. He didn't teach people how to feel more inspired. He taught them how to live with intention, how to act based on principle, not impulse. Because principle doesn't waver. It doesn't need to feel good to be right. It holds steady, even when you don't. That's the foundation you've been missing. Motivation promises movement, but without clarity, it becomes motion without direction. You end up busy but lost, tired but unsatisfied, doing more while becoming less connected to who you really are. That's why motivation alone can't save you. Because action without purpose wears you down. Because chasing energy leads to burnout when that energy has nowhere meaningful to go. You've probably had days where you did everything right. You followed the morning routine. You listened to the podcast. You wrote your to-do list. You even repeated affirmations. But by the afternoon, your mind was cloudy again. You were dragging yourself through tasks. You were back in the cycle, questioning yourself, doubting your path, wondering why the feeling didn't last. It's not your fault. You were relying on something that was never built to carry the full weight of your transformation. What you need isn't a better boost. You need a better anchor. Covey taught that people must build their lives around what he called a center. For some, it's money. For others, it's image, work, approval, or pleasure. But those things shift. They don't hold. The only center that creates real stability is principle. And when your actions come from principle, you no longer need to wait for the perfect feeling to take the next step. You simply take it because it aligns, because it matters, because you've chosen it. Think about the people you admire most. They're not the ones who look the most motivated. They're the ones who stay consistent, who move even when it's uncomfortable, who choose the hard thing because it's the right thing, and they've built the character to carry it. That kind of strength doesn't come from motivation. It comes from alignment, from knowing what you stand for, from choosing every day to act in a way that honors that. And here's something you may need to hear. You're capable of that kind of strength. Not someday now, not when you're fully healed or ready or inspired, but today, in the middle of the mess, the doubt, the noise. Because the moment you stop chasing a feeling, you create room for a decision. And decisions move your life forward, not in perfect lines, but in quiet, steady steps that build something solid beneath your feet. So if you're tired of waiting for motivation, stop waiting. Start listening instead to what you value, to what you've been avoiding, to what you know needs to change. Let that become your compass. Let that be what directs your focus, your energy, your next move. Because clarity creates movement that doesn't wear you out. It builds you. It stabilizes your mind. It gives your actions weight, the kind that doesn't disappear when the excitement fades. And that's what makes all the difference. Covey's wisdom wasn't about getting fired up. It was about building a life rooted in direction, so that even when storms hit, you don't lose your footing. That's where your power lives. Not in the fire of emotion, but in the depth of commitment. And every time you choose based on who you are and who you're becoming, you strengthen that power. You reinforce a life that holds, even when your feelings shift. You don't have to feel ready. You just have to move with intention. Because motivation will come and go. But direction? Direction keeps you going when everything else would have stopped you. Energy isn't something you find. It's something you generate when your life has direction. When you're clear about what matters. Your mind stops spinning. Your focus sharpens. Your steps become steady. You stop waking up overwhelmed by choices. You stop wasting time deciding what deserves your attention. You already know. And that knowledge gives your body and mind the signal to move forward. Stephen Covey taught a principle that changes everything. Begin with the end in mind. That means deciding where you're going before you start. It means acting from purpose, not from pressure. And when that purpose is real, your energy aligns with it. Every day, people drain themselves chasing movement. They stay busy, but they don't feel progress. They check tasks off a list, but nothing feels meaningful. That exhaustion doesn't come from how much they're doing. It comes from doing things that don't match what they believe. Real energy comes from coherence. From knowing your choices reflect your values. From feeling proud of your direction, even when the pace is slow. There's a reason you feel energized after doing something meaningful, even if it was hard. There's a reason you feel drained after a day filled with shallow tasks. It's not about effort. It's about alignment. Covey believed that people gain momentum when their daily actions reflect their long-term vision. That vision doesn't have to be perfect or complete. It just has to be true. True to what matters. True to who you want to become. True to the direction you've chosen. Clarity turns chaos into order. It gives your time structure. It brings purpose to repetition. And it creates a rhythm you can follow, even on the hardest days. Start with something simple. Ask yourself, what kind of person do I want to be this month? Write one sentence. Let that sentence guide how you spend your mornings. Let it guide the way you say yes and no. Let it shape the kind of work you do and how you show up. This isn't about perfection. It's about truth. It's about refusing to live another day on autopilot. It's about stepping into the kind of focus that makes you feel calm, not chaotic. When your direction is clear, distractions lose power. Temptations feel smaller. Your boundaries become easier to defend. And the energy you use to waste on indecision becomes fuel for what truly matters. This is what makes clarity powerful. It's not loud. It's consistent. It doesn't burn fast and fade. It stays. Because it's built on something that lasts. When you begin with the end in mind, you become intentional with your time. You plan around your values. You act with purpose, not pressure. And that gives you more than just results. It gives you peace. That peace isn't passive. It's active. It makes your actions feel lighter. It strengthens your discipline. It protects your mind from noise that once drained you. People who walk with direction don't need constant reminders. They know who they are. They know what they stand for. And they choose to live in a way that reflects that, day after day. That's available to you, too. Even if you felt lost. Even if you've been spinning in confusion. Even if you've been living in reaction instead of intention. You can return to your center. You can define what matters now. And you can let that definition shape your decisions, one step at a time. Direction doesn't have to be big. It just has to be real. And once it becomes real, it becomes powerful. Let today be the moment you stop chasing movement. Let it be the moment you return to meaning. Because the more clearly you see your path, the stronger you'll feel every time you walk it. Purpose isn't something you find. It's something you remember. It's not hidden in a book or waiting at the end of a long journey. It's already inside you, quiet, buried, and often ignored. Buried under expectations. Buried under survival. Buried under the noise of everything you thought you should become. Stephen Covey believed that people don't feel lost because they're weak. They feel lost because they've lost touch with what matters most. And until that connection is restored, no plan, routine, or goal will feel right. You've probably felt it. That quiet discomfort that shows up in the middle of your day. You're working, moving, functioning. But something's off. Like your actions are out of sync with something deeper. Like you're busy, but not fulfilled. That feeling is a signal. Not a problem, a message. It's your inner compass trying to point you back to your center. And if you ignore it long enough, it doesn't go away. It just shows up louder. In frustration, in exhaustion, in the slow disconnection from your own life. So what do? You stop. You get quiet. You ask questions that most people are too busy to ask. What do I value most right now? What kind of person am I becoming with the way I'm living? What do I want this season of my life to represent? These aren't abstract ideas. They are the roots of every decision you make. They shape your time, your relationships, your energy. When you're disconnected from your purpose, everything feels heavier. Every small task requires willpower. Every decision feels like a guess. Every day blurs into the next. But when you reconnect, even slightly, the shift is immediate. You move with more clarity. You protect your energy with more confidence. You begin to organize your life around what actually matters. Covey called this principle-centered living. It means building your days on values that don't change with emotion or pressure. Values like growth, integrity, contribution, discipline, love. These are not just nice ideas. They are tools for clarity. When your purpose is clear, your boundaries make sense. You stop saying yes to things that take you in the wrong direction. You stop chasing validation. You stop compromising your peace just to be accepted. This isn't about withdrawing from the world. It's about showing up rooted so the world doesn't shake you. To reconnect with your purpose, you don't need a perfect mission statement. You just need honesty. Ask yourself, what am I doing each day that strengthens the person I want to become? What am I allowing that pulls me away from it? You already know the answers. They've been whispering to you. In the frustration that rises when you betray your priorities. In the sadness that shows up when you abandon your voice. In the emptiness you feel when you're praised for things you don't even believe in. Your purpose isn't a title. It's a direction. It's a standard you hold yourself to. It's the reason you choose discomfort over comfort. Because growth matters more than ease. When you reconnect with that, everything begins to align. You start managing your time based on meaning. You start shaping your goals around identity. You stop needing outside motivation because the inside is finally clear. Covey taught that when your yes is strong, your no becomes easier. When you know your purpose, you stop fearing the cost of alignment. Because you understand the cost of disconnection is always greater. Start simple. Write down 3 things that matter to you. Not what's expected, what's real. Then look at your week. Look at how you're spending your time, your energy, your attention. Do they reflect those values? If not, change something, even something small. Protect 1 hour. Redirect 1 habit. Say no once where you usually say yes. Those small adjustments begin the process. They build trust with yourself. They create movement that feels meaningful. And little by little, they reconnect you with the version of yourself you were always meant to become. You don't need to chase your purpose. You need to listen for it. It's been speaking through your restlessness, through your fatigue, through your desire for more, not more success, but more meaning. This is your moment to respond, to step back into your life with clarity, to stop drifting, to choose with intention, to reconnect with what matters, and let that become your guide. Because once you remember who you are, you stop being pulled by everything you're not. There will be days when you don't feel like it. Days when your mind is heavy and your body feels distant. Days when the clarity you fought to build feels far away. And on those days, the only thing that matters is this. Will you lead yourself anyway? Stephen Covey didn't define leadership as having control over others. He defined it as the ability to govern yourself, especially when no one is watching. Especially when the excuses are louder than your purpose. Especially when every part of you wants to delay, avoid, or retreat. That's where self-leadership is born. Not in moments of excitement, but in moments of resistance. Discipline isn't about feeling strong. It's about honoring the decisions you've already made. When you were clear, focused, and connected to your purpose. Because the truth is, motivation will not always be there. And that's not a flaw in you. That's how motivation works. It's emotional. It fluctuates. It responds to environment, energy, mood. But you are not here to serve your mood. You are here to serve your mission. Every time you follow through on something you promised yourself, even when it's hard, you build identity. You reinforce the version of you that leads, not the one that waits. And identity is stronger than emotion. When you start to see yourself as someone who shows up, who keeps their word, who acts with integrity even in silence, you stop relying on willpower. You move with conviction. Covey often spoke of personal integrity as the foundation of leadership. He didn't mean perfection. He meant alignment. Doing what you said you would do, not to check a box, but to prove to yourself that you're trustworthy. Because self-trust isn't built through intentions. It's built through follow-through. Quiet follow-through. The kind no one praises. The kind that doesn't feel impressive, but feels solid. So when the motivation is gone, you go anyway. Not recklessly, not with force, but with clarity. You remind yourself, this matters. I chose this. I'm still aligned. And if you fall out of rhythm, you don't spiral. You return, not with shame, but with responsibility. That's what leaders do. They return, not once, not perfectly, but consistently. And that consistency isn't about routines. It's about values. It's about knowing that your actions shape your character, that the way you lead yourself in private defines how you show up in every area of your life. So how do you lead yourself when motivation disappears? You simplify. You stop waiting to feel ready. You choose one thing that reflects the person you're becoming, and you do it. You wake up and protect the first hour of your day. You sit in silence even when your mind resists. You move your body, write your thoughts, complete your commitment. Not because it feels good, but because it's who you are training yourself to be. Covey didn't offer tricks. He offered principles. And principles don't need to feel exciting to work. They just need to be lived. When you live them, you walk differently. You build a rhythm that isn't dependent on motivation. You learn to act without waiting, to follow through without being pushed, to show up without being begged by your emotions. And slowly, the identity changes. You stop asking, how can I stay motivated? And you start asking, how can I stay aligned? That shift changes everything. Because the person who stays aligned doesn't need hype. They don't need perfect conditions. They need one thing, a reason to keep showing up. And you already have that reason. You've seen what happens when you drift. You've felt the weight of disconnection. You know what it costs to live out of rhythm with yourself. Now it's time to protect the alignment you've rebuilt, to lead with clarity, to walk through the resistance, not around it. And when the next low day comes, and it will, you'll meet it with stability. Not panic, not collapse, but leadership, because you've become someone who moves even in the dark, someone who honors their word even when no one notices, someone who leads quietly, daily, deeply. This is who you are now. You don't rise with motivation. You rise with systems. Motivation might get you started, but it never stays. And that's okay, because it was never meant to. What sustains real change isn't how you feel, but what you've designed to support who you're becoming. Stephen Covey understood this deeply. He taught that personal leadership means putting first things first, not hoping they'll happen, but creating a system where they must. That's what a system does. It removes chance. It reduces friction. It aligns your daily actions with your deepest values. So if you've ever felt like you keep losing momentum, if you've started strong only to fade after a few days, it's not because you're weak. It's because you're relying on emotion to do the job of a system. And emotion wasn't built for that. Emotion is fuel, not structure. You don't need to wake up inspired every day. You need to know what to do and have it embedded into your environment, your schedule, your rhythm. Because when discipline is tied to a system, you don't have to think. You don't have to negotiate. You just follow through. Let's be honest. Without a system, everything becomes optional. And when things are optional, your old self always finds a way back in. But when you build a system, you create anchors. You protect your clarity. You create a path that's stronger than your excuses. And that doesn't have to mean a perfect routine. It means choosing a few non-negotiables that keep you aligned and designing your day around them. Ask yourself, what are the 3 most important things I need to do daily to protect who I'm becoming? Then schedule them, not around your mood, but as a non-negotiable appointment with yourself. For example, you wake up and move your body, even for 10 minutes, not to look good, but to take control of your energy. You sit with your thoughts, even if they're uncomfortable, to reconnect with your inner voice. You review your priorities, even briefly, to make sure your actions reflect your direction. That's your system. It's not about how big it is. It's about how aligned it is. Covey always emphasized beginning with the end in mind. That's the heart of your system. Every small step you take should reinforce the future you've already chosen. And if it doesn't, cut it out. If something drains your time, blurs your focus, or dilutes your energy, remove it. Because anything that interrupts your system is not neutral, it's pulling you off course. And this is not about being rigid. It's about being intentional. It's about saying, this matters. I matter. And my time will reflect that. Most people drift through their days. They react, respond, survive. But people who grow, people who lead themselves, they design their days. And even when the day goes off course, they come back to the system. That's the power of structure. It brings you home, again and again. You don't need the perfect planner. You don't need to wake up at 5 a.m. You just need a repeatable path built around your values that you follow regardless of how you feel. Because your feelings will change, but your system should not. Let it be your anchor. Let it be the proof that you are serious about your transformation. When you act without a system, you leave too much room for sabotage. Your mind will negotiate. Your body will hesitate. Your past identity will whisper that you can do it later. But when you have a system, you don't argue. You act. And each time you follow through, you strengthen your trust. You reinforce the identity of someone who keeps going. That's the real reward. Not just progress, but the person you become through the process. So if you've been waiting to feel ready, if you've been trying to power through on emotion alone, it's time to stop waiting. It's time to build. Build a system that carries you when motivation doesn't. Build a system that protects your clarity when life gets loud. Build a system that reflects who you've decided to become, and return to it every single day. This is how you sustain change. This is how you stop restarting. This is how you take your transformation from emotional to inevitable. Because the strongest people are not those who feel motivated every morning. They are those who design for the moments they won't. And you are becoming one of them. Most people quit before it works. They start strong. They do the journaling. They wake up early for a few days. They even feel the shift. But then a life shows up. The noise returns. Old patterns knock at the door. And instead of reinforcing the new self, they return to the familiar one. The one that already knows how to survive, how to cope, how to hide. It's not because they're lazy. It's because they didn't stay long enough to become it. Real transformation doesn't come with sparks. It comes with rhythm, with quiet repetition, with showing up on the days when your old self whispers, you can skip it, just for today. Those are the days that count most. Because discipline isn't tested when it's easy. It's forged when it's inconvenient. Stephen Covey taught that private victories always precede public ones. The shifts no one sees, the decisions no one applauds. Those are the ones that build the foundation for everything else. So let me ask you something. Have you given your new self enough time to take root? Or are you expecting harvest before you finish planting? You say you want change, but do you show up for it when it feels boring? When it's slow? When no one's watching? Because that's where it happens. Not in a single breakthrough, but in the quiet hours you spend choosing alignment over comfort. Discipline isn't punishment. It's devotion to the future you, to the vision that won't let go, to the version of yourself you're still meeting in the mirror. And yes, it takes time. More time than you think. But every time you stay, every time you act in integrity with who you're becoming, you're rewriting the story. Your brain is watching. Your identity is listening. And every repetition becomes a vote for the person you've decided to be. So don't just start. Don't just hope. Don't just commit when it's convenient. Stay. Stay when it's messy. Stay when you feel behind. Stay when nothing looks like it's changing. Because if you stay long enough, you don't just do the process. You become it. You stop needing motivation. You stop needing reminders. You stop questioning if you're on the right path. Because now, you are the path. That's what real leadership looks like. It's not loud. It's not flashy. It's quiet, strong, and deeply rooted. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. You just need to prove to yourself, every day, that you're not going anywhere, because you've decided, not temporarily, not emotionally, but fundamentally. And the moment you stop negotiating with the old self, the moment you stop giving time to identities that already failed you, everything changes. Not because the world changed, but because you did. So here's the truth no one likes to admit. You don't need another strategy. You don't need another book, another video, another burst of motivation. You need time. Time spent in alignment. Time spent in silence with your purpose. Time spent walking forward when it feels like nothing is moving. That's what shapes you. And one day, you'll look back and realize it wasn't one big moment. It was the choice to stay, over and over again, until there was no gap between who you were and who you're becoming. You became it, because you stayed long enough. So if you're still here, if you've made it through every step of this process, I want you to know this. You're not just listening. You're shifting. You're stepping into a new layer of self-leadership that most people never reach. And it's not because you feel ready. It's because you're building readiness through action. So now don't stop. Not because it's hard, but because it matters. Don't wait for clarity. Create it. Don't look for momentum. Build it. And most of all, don't ask the world to validate your transformation. Let your actions speak louder. Let your consistency show. Let your life become the evidence. You've already started. You've already shifted. Now the only task left is to stay. Stay in the process. Stay in the rhythm. Stay in the identity. Not for a week. Not for a month. But long enough to become it. Long enough for it to feel like breathing. Long enough for the old self to feel like a stranger. Long enough for discipline to stop being something you do and become who you are. That's the journey. That's the difference between starting and becoming. And if these words resonate with you, if something inside you knows that this time it has to be different, then don't just watch. Lead yourself. And if you're choosing to stay in the process, to keep becoming, day by day, layer by layer, then subscribe now, not for more noise, but to be reminded again and again that you're not alone in this work, that you've already started something too important to abandon, that this time, you're all in,